I wish I was big just once. You're a big cops.
Really funny. Really funny.
What do you mean I'm funny?
It's funny, you know. It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
What do you mean? You mean the way I talk? What?
It's just, you know, you're just funny. It's funny, you know, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
Martin Charles Scorsese was born on November 17th, 1942 in New York, and lived in the Little Italy section of Manhattan from an early age. Martin came from a working-class family, and his mother and father were both actors. Marty had very bad asthma as a child, so he'd be taken to the movie theatre a lot since he couldn't do any sports, and this is where his passion for cinema began.
Because there were no books in my house. There were, my parents were working class. They didn't read, so it was television and films that I saw, and I started reading later. But in any event, it's important because I took the religion seriously. I had terrible asthma, and when we were living in the Lower East Side, it was a pretty rough place, and I really couldn't, I wasn't athletic, and I couldn't fight very well, and that's what I was, you know, comic relief, basically, on the streets. And so I just found myself in the church or in a movie theater, and so I took the church more seriously.
Scorsese attended NYU's University College of Arts and Science, where he earned his undergraduate degree in English in 1964. Shortly after, he went on to earn his Master of Fine Arts degree from NYU's School of the Arts in 1966. In 1967, Marty created his first feature film, Who's That Knocking at My Door, with Harvey Keitel and Thelma Schoonmaker, both of which became long-term collaborators. Here's some fun facts about Martin Scorsese you may or may not have known. Martin almost became a priest. Yep, this pretty much explains why there's so many Catholic themes in his movies. Martin's new film, Silence, which as of recording this video hasn't been released yet, is based on the journey of two priests travelling to Japan to find their mentor. So clearly Martin's experience with the church has stayed with him throughout his life. Scorsese's parents both feature in his earlier films like Raging Bull, Goodfellas and Casino. Martin's mother though, Catherine, is probably a little more famous due to her scene in Goodfellas. You know, the "can I borrow that knife? Stabby stabby," that scene.
Working nights. And? Well, tonight we were out late. We took a ride out to the country, and we hit one of those deers. That's where the blood came from. I told you. Jimmy told you before. I want to say. Anyway, you know what reminds me? I need this knife. I'm gonna take this. It's okay?
Okay, yeah.
I just need it for a
bring
little
it
while.
back, though, you know.
Well, the poor thing, you know, I hit him in his, we hit the deer in his paw. What do you call it?
The paw.
The paw.
his
The
foot.
hoof. The hoof got caught in the grill.
Oh.
I gotta hack it off.
Ooh.
Ma, it's a sin. You gotta leave it there, you know. Still alive.
No, fucking piece of shit. God. Look at me. Look at my fucking eyes.
Scorsese made his name early when he was only 31 years old, when his critically acclaimed Mean Streets was released in 1973. This marked a breakthrough, not only for Scorsese, but also for someone he collaborated with throughout his career, Robert De Niro. The film had all of Marty's style, a macho guy, the tough and gritty New York look and feel, violence which always turned bloody, and a good soundtrack. Mean Streets was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry due to it being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. De Niro also won Best Supporting Actor at the National Society of Film Critics. Only 3 years after Scorsese really burst onto the scene, he followed up his success in Mean Streets with Taxi Driver in 1976. Once again, the film starred Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel, who was also in Mean Streets. De Niro played the main character Travis, and the film told the story of a lonely man's slow descent into the pit of insanity. Initially, the film was well received by critics and fans, although it was still controversial due to Jodie Foster's character, Iris, being an underage prostitute. The film's controversy was once again brought up 5 years later, when John Hinckley made an assassination attempt on then-President Ronald Reagan, after which he blamed his obsession with Jodie Foster's character in Taxi Driver, and, obviously in the film, De Niro's character as Travis attempts to assassinate a senator. Apart from all of Scorsese's films that we know of and love, he has also directed many documentaries throughout his career, as well as episodes of television shows. Scorsese has directed an episode of Vinyl and Boardwalk Empire, for both of which he was also the executive producer. Scorsese has directed documentaries such as Public Speaking and The Last Waltz. Marty even directed Michael Jackson's music video for his track Bad. This is all well and good, learn about what Martin has made throughout his life, but what inspired him in the first place? Scorsese has said his favourite actors during his youth were Cebu and Victor Mature, and has also stated the influence on his work of 1947's Paul and Pressburger film Black Narcissus. Martin has also been influenced by the French New Wave. He is quoted as saying, "The French New Wave has influenced all filmmakers who have worked since, whether they saw the films or not." I'm probably going to butcher this next line, but here we go. Martin Scorsese has said filmmakers such as Ingmar Bergman, Michelangelo Antonio, and Federico Fellini have all influenced his career. Martin Scorsese is an auteur. An auteur is a director that could be viewed as an artist because they use lighting, camera work, sound, editing, and staging to add to their vision in the films they create. It is the use of the director's artistic, visual, and technical skills to create the exact image they want. Once again, I'm probably going to butcher this line and I'm shockingly bad at French, but here we go. François Truffaut published an article in Les Cahiers du Cinéma in 1954, which first talked of a director as an auteur. That was painful to say. If you sit down and watch a Scorsese film without knowing that Scorsese made the film, you should be able to take a very good guess by all of the techniques used in the film that Scorsese is the director of the film that you are watching. So, what trademarks can we expect to see in a Martin Scorsese film? Marty likes to use long tracking shots. The best and most popular example of this in his films is the shot from Goodfellas, released in 1990, which follows two characters walking through the back of the Copacabana restaurant.
How you doing? Good, good. What's up? There you go. How you doing, Gino? How are you? Good, good. Hey. Every time I come here, every time you two. Don't you work?
Martin also likes to use slow motion in his films, usually in a close-up of a character in a pivotal scene that takes a toll on the character psychologically. A good example of this is in Raging Bull, released in 1980, when Jake LaMotta, played by Robert De Niro, decides to let his face get smashed in a boxing match. Scorsese also likes to begin his films with the scene of the protagonist. Again, a good example of this is how Raging Bull or Goodfellas begins.
What is that? Jimmy,
What's up? What's up?
did I hit something?
What is that?
Is there flat?
Flat?
What? No.
What the fuck? You better pull over and see.
There's also references to early Western films in Scorsese's work. Once again, the most popular example of this is in Goodfellas, when Joe Pesci's character Tommy shoots his gun directly down the camera. A slightly obvious nod from Marty to the old Western films.
Get to live the rest of my life like a schnook.
Music also plays a part in Martin's films. He seems to like to pick music that is popular at the time. The Rolling Stones' Jumpin' Jack Flash in Mean Streets, and The House of the Rising Sun by the Animals in Casino. Scorsese also does the opposite though. At times he doesn't use sound at all, and this adds a lot more to his scene or shot. For example, the moment in Raging Bull whenever De Niro's character, Jake LaMotta, decides to let Sugar Ray Robinson punch his face in, just before Robinson unloads his shots, it all goes quiet and slow motion is slightly introduced. This adds a lot more to the scene than music would ever do. He knows how to use the art of silence. Scorsese never had any books lying around the house to read as a child, so he'd only read in school. This meant that Martin learned how to tell a story only through images, so visual literacy played a massive role in Martin's life, and he describes the importance of visual literacy in this clip.
One has to begin to, I think, reach younger people at an earlier age for them to shape their minds in a critical way of looking at these images and what they mean and how to interpret imagery. And I think in a more official way, I think, than just punching up on a computer or seeing something on a TV commercial or something like that. I think you really need to know. You need to know how ideas and emotions are expressed through a visual form. Now that form could be video, or film. It probably eventually would be digital video for a long time to come. But it still has the same rules, and it still has the same vocabulary, and it still has the same grammar, I should say. Really, the same grammar. And the grammar is panning left and right, tracking in or out, booming up and down, intercutting a certain way, the use of a close-up as opposed to a medium shot. What is a medium shot? What is a long shot? All these sort of things, and how do you use all these elements and the different kinds of lighting, and how you use all these elements to make an emotional and psychological point to an audience. And I think we have to begin to teach our younger people how to use this very powerful tool, because we know film, the image, can be so strong for not only for good use, but also for bad use. Look at World War II, and look at the films that were made in Germany. Look at the great director, Leni Riefenstahl. Look at her Triumph of the Will, and how that really, the extraordinary ability she had as a filmmaker, how that helped shape the policies of the Third Reich. And of course we know what that led to. And so film is very powerful. Images are very powerful, I should say, and we have to begin to teach younger people how to use them, and at least to begin to understand, to interpret them.
Violence has nearly always had a part to play in Scorsese's films, from the brutal opening of Goodfellas to the unpredictable nature of Jake LaMotta and Raging Bull. But it is never violence without a cause or without an intended outcome. The brute nature of Jake LaMotta, particularly towards his wife, allows the audience to understand that the character is not only self-destructive in the ring, allowing his opponent to batter him for a period, but also self-destructive outside the ring in his personal life. Jake LaMotta is tormented with paranoia and jealousy, and this ends up destroying his life entirely.
That's all I want. That's all I want. There, no more. There. You bothering me about a steak, huh? You bothering me about a steak?
As I said earlier in the video, Martin Scorsese collaborates with the same people over and over and over again. In the earlier part of Martin's career, it was Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Harvey Keitel. And later in his career, the main protagonist in his films was Leonardo DiCaprio. Scorsese has even used the same editor throughout the majority of his career, with the odd exception, Thelma Schoonmaker. In conclusion, and to keep it short and sweet, Martin Scorsese cemented a legacy as one of the best filmmakers in the history of cinema. His legacy is already set in stone, and he's still creating films for us to enjoy even today. His long and very much illustrious career continues. Martin Scorsese, an auteur.